Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to SADX Ask the Experts. And today's topic is pride in mental health. We are creating spaces through support groups. My name is Ofense Hanyana, and we are joined by three incredible guests. We're joined by Will, Viwe, and Tris. And just to formally introduce them all, Will is a LGBTQIA plus support group leader, master psychology student, queer poet, and researcher. He is driven by affirmative care and creating spaces for those pushed to the margins of society. He works from an intersectional approach and believes in self-determination. We also have Viwe Tefani. Viwe is a social worker, and their work at Triangle Project involves counseling people through various life challenges, including gender-based violence, intimate partner violence, and acceptance. Viwe has also facilitated educational workshops about sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, and characteristics and discrimination, as well as mental health. They have been involved in LGBTQIA plus activism for over 10 years. Viwe is passionate about queer liberation, creating new and decolonized masculinities, sex positivity, and multiple partner relationships, including ethical non-monogamy, polyamory, and psychological safety in relationships. We also joined by Tristan. Tristan facilitates the LGBT mental health support group and is passionate about creating welcoming spaces for connection, understanding, and support. Drawing on both their psychological background and lived experience, they committed to fostering conversations around mental health within the LGBTQIA plus community. They believe that everyone deserves to feel seen, heard, and supported in their mental health journey. Welcome, Viwe. Welcome, Tris. Welcome, Will. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you as
So,
well.
just to get started, I really want to ask you all a question. And this is like, a question for me personally. I'm the one who wanted to know this. So I want to know from all of you. Um, what are some of the biggest misconceptions or outdated terms you still hear from people using? And what would you like people to understand instead? So I'm going to start with Will, then I'm going to go to Viwe, and then Tris.
Lucky number one. So I think one term that I heard recently, and this came from my therapist, to which I had like a cringy moment was the use of the word gaydar. Um, it's an uncomfortable word considering that you will never be able to tell someone's sexuality or sexual orientation just based
perhaps somebody who has got other personality conditions or personality disorders, like borderline personality disorder or bipolar disorder, etc. So there's other psychiatric conditions that maybe some people do come, but those are quite kind of more rare compared to the others.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Mm,
And I just want to go to the next person. I want to
sure.
touch on Will. So, Vera was talking about how he's noticed that a lot of people within the community have depression, have anxiety, have gone through traumas, they have PTSD. And I'm assuming that, you've started a support group to cover some of those challenges because we know that mental health resources in South Africa is not as accessible. And so we start these support groups to make it accessible for people who cannot travel or who can't pay for a psychologist. And, we believe that support groups create opportunities for people to connect with others who share similar lived experiences. So, Will, from you, how have you seen these connections impact the mental health, the confidence, and just the sense of belonging for the people in your group?
Thank you for that question. I think I've seen it mostly in like you said, the having a space to be able to share and relay your experience without it having it judged. So a non-judgmental space. And it's very important because I think I always say that, support groups are primarily and in as much as we don't have resources, they're really complementary, to whatever services there already are. So, if of course, something is beyond the scope of the support group, then, referrals are necessary or, having that base or that database is essential. But yeah, so I just see it through their confidence, their ability to action their goals, being vulnerable in that space, and also just having someone to listen to because I think the biggest contributor to you know mental health or depression is that isolation or that hopelessness, which support groups most often combat. So yeah, I really see it within in that space in that form. If
create environments where queer individuals feel comfortable talking about mental health and asking for help when they need it.
Thank you. I think it goes back to what Viva also said about, having a open, non-judgmental space, because a lot of times there's a fear of being rejected, there's a fear of being judged, there's a fear of, you know, worse things that could happen. So things that I, consider are about having creating safe spaces is just to firstly consult resources, out of your own volition. Consult resources on websites, and that really builds your cultural humility and competence in, when it comes to providing a safe space. And then I think also it goes back to I know WITS has it also, but there's another university overseas where they have safe zones. And so basically what safe zones means is where you would get a sticker and you would say, okay, paste it. We see it a lot in academic spaces where lecturers would use those stickers and say, like, this is a queer friendly space, or this is an LGBT friendly space. And that also allows queer individuals to be safe in that space, to know that they can approach people and talk about their mental health. So it really just involves empathy, that unconditional positive regard, not being afraid to talk about, you know, about sex and things like that, and in a positive way, um, and allow those people to reach out to you. So I think, overseas they also had the P flag. I don't know if we have a branch in South Africa, but this is basically where parents of LGBTQIA plus individuals joined this NGO and organization, and they are actually supporting and providing services for the LGBTQIA plus community. And then lastly, I would say the ideal would be to advocate, for LGBTQIA plus human rights, or just rights, to participate in protests, participate in marches,